For the past year, I've been searching high and low, well, mostly in the low places, for the most dreadful, atmospheric, thematically rich town horror novels, where the settings feel so detailed, so lived in, so authentic that they feel like characters themselves. Books like Stephen King's It and its clown-cursed dairy, or his Needful Things with its devilishly charming Castle Rock. And so far, my hunt for town horror books, outside of King's archive that is, has led me to 4 fantastic stories, equally important and equally influential for the subgenre. I've already shared my thoughts on Norman Partridge's Dark Harvest and Hex by Thomas Olduvelt, but now it's time to move on to 2 bigger powerhouses within the horror genre, ones more established and experienced at bringing you thrills and chills, beginning today with Dan Simmons and his Summer of Night. Much like King's Castle Rock series, comprised of loosely connected stories which all utilize the town of Castle Rock and many of its major players, Summer of Night kicks off Dan Simmons' own series titled Seasons of Horror. And much like King's It or the Duffer Brothers' hit series Stranger Things, both of which are also set 3 decades prior to their publication, Summer of Night embodies that youthful coming-of-age story pitting a group of kids against supernatural entities which threaten their American small town. While the premise for this one might sound very run-of-the-mill for fans of the genre, Summer of Night was a bit of a trailblazer back when it was first released. Alongside Stephen King's It, which came just 5 years prior in 1986, it helped to revitalize this particular type of story, creating a new wave of nostalgia-infused cosmic horror, both being heavily influenced by the likes of Bradbury and Lovecraft. Not quite a pioneer of this subgenre, Summer of Night still contributes literary depth to this familiar story, embracing its 1960 Illinois small-town setting, as well as grotesque imagery and a braided narrative which allows for each protagonist's story to breathe and build towards an epic reunion, and, of course, their final confrontation. These kinds of stories are dependent upon realistic and heavy stakes, as well as unique action sequences which pay off the building suspense and anticipation. And it's my opinion that Summer of Night succeeds in both realms, which is largely what kept me from ever putting this book down. Now, while the tone manages to strike a nice balance with summer nostalgia and its darker atmosphere, the prose itself struggles to find any real consistency, sometimes equipping a snappier style, and other times overstaying its welcome with an insane level of details, to the point where it feels like the narrator has rambled on so much that they themselves forgot what was actually going on. And likewise, I found the pacing to be nothing but perfect, even with its riskier story structure, but the themes left me wanting, never exploring beyond the obvious ones which are overabundant within this subgenre. However, it's the characters who might just be the most imbalanced aspect of this novel, with multiple protagonists who take some time to warm up to and learn what makes each of them tick, and a slew of villains who never really become anything more than a mysterious force or a mysterious goon. Unless that is you count the obligatory, stereotypical small-town bully. Now, that all said, once I did become attached to our heroes, there was no letting go, and it became quite obvious all the different routes Simmons could take with his semi-connected series. The characters see a fair amount of growth within this sinister summer, and the relationships they form are a huge driver of what makes this book work as well as it does. And likewise, where the villains were a bit generic for my taste, I still found the story pulled them together in satisfying ways when it mattered most. Which brings us to the setting of Elm Haven, an eerily cursed and historically rich small town in Illinois. Simmons provides himself with a ton of toys to play with, bringing this town to life and using it in every conceivable way to bring you not just chills and thrills, but also cheers and tears. It's familiar yet unique, relatable when it needs to be, and dreadfully atmospheric when it's time to make you shudder. I greatly enjoyed its exploration of small-town ideals like Catholicism and sin, justice versus prejudice, and history versus mystery. The only way my copy's setting could have been improved would have been having an official town map printed in the front. Overall, I deeply enjoyed the journey which Simmons took me on. It can feel discombobulated at times, but more often than not, it was a focused tale designed to bring you just as much nostalgia as understandable dread. For these reasons, if this were a recent publication, I'd award it a solid 8 out of 10, but seeing as it's an older and somewhat overlooked gem, I'll be rating it an 8.5. In my opinion, you'd have a tough time finding a better summer horror read beyond the classics, one that will make you think as much as it makes you feel, and one that will leave you wondering about your own town's dark past, troubled mysteries, and all the other things it wishes you'd just forget. Sometimes it's good to just let dead things stay dead, but Summer of Night forces you to question, what if they never died? And what if they never left? I hope you all enjoyed this third entry in my 2-minute town horror book review series. The fourth and final, at least for now, is set for an October release, and I hope to see you all there when the time comes. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment your favorite summer horror down below, whether that be a novel, a movie, or a series, and consider checking out my 2-minute book review and Halloween horror playlists. Thank you all so much for tuning in and sticking around. I will see you all next time.